it's always hard to get a read on contract negotiations when you're only getting one side. But Bob McKenzie reports that the Detroit Red Wings are standing firm with Andreas Athanasiou, and the offer stands at $1.9 million per year for 2 years. Athanasiou wants more. The thing is, we don't know if he wants more term or more money. My guess is probably both. Everybody points out Athanasiou had 18 goals last year, and that's fine. But he only had 7.5 season the year before. I think he had 7.5 year before. He had 9 goals and 14 points. No, he had 9 goals and 14 points in 37 games the first year. He is a good goal-scoring player through a season and a half. I can understand Detroit being a little bit nervous, but at the same time, they overpaid everybody else. See, right now, Detroit's $3 million over the cap. When Franzen goes on to LTIR at the start of the year, they're $900,000 under the cap. That's not enough money. Even if Athanasiou signs this contract, they'd still be over the cap by $1 million at the start of the season with Franzen on LTIR. So the real thing is, do you take a loss if you're Detroit and trade out one of your bigger money guys finding a taker? Or do you move some of the younger, lower priced? Like, I'm not sure how this is going to work for Detroit. I remember at the start of the summer when I looked over who was really in cap trouble, and everybody mentioned Washington and Detroit a lot, and I paid some attention, not a lot. And then I really looked at it and I'm like, yeah, Washington's going to have a hard time fielding a team. And, fielding meaning baseball, because they certainly can't play with a hockey cap this way. And Detroit has a cap problem. Detroit has consistently been overpaying its players, probably by $500,000 to $1 million each. This is why when people say, yeah, this contract this guy just signs probably $1 million more than what he's worth, but what's $1 million? Well, when you consistently overpay everybody, you're Detroit. Detroit has a problem. I think Mrazek's the guy they want to lose. Mrazek's the guy they want to get rid of. Or Howard. If they can get rid of Jimmy Howard, they'll stomach Mrazek as much as they can. Because basically Mrazek for them would be Buckley's. It would taste awful for Ken Holland, but it would work. So I'm not sure how Detroit digs their way out of this. Because a lot of teams that are cap spenders, they're already at the cap. And there's nothing Detroit would have to offer right now that these teams would want. But Athanasiou is the guy caught in the middle. You could argue that he's worth more than $1.9 million a year. You could argue that Detroit should be offering him more. You can also argue, and probably rightfully so, Detroit would have offered him more if they had the money to spend. Now they're trying to be frugal. And it's at the expense of a guy who, scored 18 goals. Do I think he's a goal scorer in the 20-25 goal range? Maybe. It's still early in his career to know for sure. But whether he is or isn't, the Wings aren't willing to pay him like they paid other guys based on their potential. And then you've got other contracts still lingering soon in Dylan Larkin and Anthony Mantha. And those guys have to be watching Athanasiou right now and seeing how the negotiations are going for him, or rather aren't going for him. I think that the Wings would be smart to get this done, but at the same time, do you make an irrational decision and just trade out money, trade out a potentially good player for nothing? Because that's basically what they're left doing. And it's I've said the whole summer I think it's going to be a rough year for Wings fans, and I do. And this cap situation has to be resolved for this year. You can't not put a decent team on the ice because of the salary cap. This isn't even about competing for a Stanley Cup. This is about putting a team on the ice. So they've got themselves into this situation. They got to dig their way out. Maybe Holland was betting on the cap going up more than it has. It's been kind of stagnant the last couple of years. And maybe this was just no planning. Maybe he didn't look ahead. But either way, they're in this situation now. And Andreas is caught in the middle. And I don't blame him for not signing for less than what he thinks he's worth. I think a 2-year bridge contract at 1.9 sounds fine, personally. But the market is relatively high right now, and he probably wants to capitalize on that. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. How much do you think Athanasiou is worth? And who does Detroit trade out to get out of this situation? Do they just sacrifice a goalie and then have Caro as the backup? Or is there somebody else on the roster who would have value somewhere else? I'm not talking Nicholas Kronwall. I'm not talking about some stupidity of, well, just trade Zetterberg and get back. No. Somebody who's actually got value for another team, they might be able to get something back for. And, some way to actually get back under the cap and stay under it. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.